Hey you, thanks a lot for listening to Elwood City Limits this week. A little bit of a technical glitch that we've had in the editing process. We accidentally Adobe Audition accidentally snipped off about the first 5 minutes of the episode. Just to catch you up on what we talked about, we started off, I said Lucas kind of dressed like he was getting ready for golfing because it was a very hot day when we recorded, the first hot day that we've had here so far. Then we started off by reading an email from listener Corban Garcia, and his question was about whether the characters on Arthur have ever acknowledged the fact that they're animals. And you join us about halfway through that discussion. The real meat of it managed to be saved. I don't know. Adobe just did what it wanted and saved the rest of the episode, thank goodness, but those first 5 minutes, unfortunately, are lost to time. So you're going to be joining us mid-conversation. That's all you missed, and enjoy the episode. Thanks. Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook.
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits.
Twitter.
@ECL Podcast.
Tumblr.
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com.
And Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there.
Like, do they feel like making a joke about this person's specific animal characteristic? I remember one of the main examples was when Francine's dad is explaining the history of garbage. Doesn't he either confirms or denies that they all think they're people? Like,
yeah, it's like ever since humans have like walked on the earth.
That's what he says. He says humans have walked the earth. But then I feel like there's been other times where people are like, "Oh, I'm a bunny." We can confirm our Garfunkel believes it to be a sad bunny.
That's right. But I don't know. The only one I can remember ever acknowledging which animal he is Buster, because when I was a kid, besides from Arthur being an aardvark, I didn't know, like, I wasn't sure what kind of animals everybody else was, because they don't really refer to themselves as that, almost never.
I think, what's the moose's name?
George.
I feel like George and Buster are the only ones where what animal they are ever comes into play.
Yeah.
Like everyone else is kind of like a generic dog or cat or
and it's
aardvark.
because it's a lot of sometimes it's because of their large head adornment, either their ears or their antlers.
Exactly. It's those things that set them apart. They're not like when the Backstreet Boys come in. It's like, I don't know, they're some animal. They just got ears. They look like the Backstreet Boys with ears.
They're usually
coming out of their heads.
They're usually bears. Like Matt Damon, he's a bear.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine, but
he is an animal.
The trick is to not think about it too much.
Right. Also, if you didn't know, all new episodes of Arthur will be releasing throughout the week starting on Monday, May 29th, and there will be 2 hour-long specials coming out later this year.
Whoa, wait a minute. That's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah. In June, it's Arthur, DW, and the Beastly Birthday. DW's 5th birthday doesn't go the way that she planned when she decides to escape to the magical island of Ukubonga.
Wait, what?
Meanwhile, Arthur...
What?
Meanwhile, Arthur has skipped her birthday party to go on a school trip to the planetarium, but instead of transporting him into outer space, it transports him 4 years in the future.
Are you making this up, Will?
No, he got this from the PBS Press website, did Corban.
Man, is Ukubonga problematic? That sounds problematic to me.
I saw the trailer for this. I think it's more of like a Where the Wild Things Are situation.
Sure.
So because there's like giant monsters and stuff.
That's interesting. You know, thinking about long form Arthur is the more I think about it, the more intrigued I am, because we're so used to digesting these 22-minute chunks, but often a criticism we make is like, oh, I feel like this could have had more time to really flush out this story. So I wonder how well that goes over.
And then in October, Arthur and the Haunted Treehouse. Francine meets an elderly woman with a very mysterious past, while Binky finds himself at Mr. Ratburn's amazing haunted house.
What?
And as for Arthur, Buster, and LaDonna, their treehouse sleepover seems to be haunted, but by what?
Man, these through lines, there's like a lot going on.
That's right.
I guess there has to be. It's like, I don't hear about kids shows doing that often. The last I can think of is like that Teen Titans made for TV movie where they went to Japan.
I feel like maybe Adventure Time had like a special, but I might be making that up. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's happened, but it is pretty rare. And usually they're like released to video or something.
Really cool concept, though.
Yeah.
I'm color me intrigued. That's the most interested I've been in modern Arthur. So
We were talking about something that we might want to do at some point for a longer form Arthur episode, so we'll have to keep this under our hats. Thank you, Corbon. He says thanks for doing the show and appreciate the email. All right, let's get to it. The first story on tap today is one that you were very excited for last week, DW the Picky Eater. And this one is actually a cold open that isn't really like narrative focused. It kind of has one through line by Arthur into the rest of the episode, but it is kind of more setting up the episode than anything else. It's DW helping Mom to unpack the groceries, and we get a little bit of a peek into the foods that she likes and doesn't like.
This is funny because it feels so oddly specific that it had to be almost biographical. Like one of the writers has kids, and they just literally like wrote down the few foods their kid enjoys.
Well, I'll get to it in a second, but some of this sounded a little too familiar. So the first thing Mom hands her is a fish, which, you know, straight from the
Fish market.
Fish market, thank you. The fish market section of the grocery store, and DW doesn't like that it's looking at her, which totally understandable. Raw fish is pretty weird to look at the grocery store when you're a kid, and you're just like, but I don't eat that. I eat like fish sticks.
Mommy, that fish looks like Katy Perry in that new video.
Which new video?
The one where she's like Migos, she's like under plastic wrap.
What?
And then the chef's cooker. The new Katy Perry video is buck wild, my dude.
This isn't Chained to the Rhythm, is it?
No. It's her new song with Migos.
Oh, great.
And she's the chefs have to prepare Katy Perry.
Ugh.
And she's under plastic, much like the fish that's looking at DW.
Millennials. And she also thinks that olives, a jar of olives, are green eyeballs. So I didn't so much follow the story here. What I did is that I wrote down an ongoing tally of DW's favorite foods and her least favorite foods.
There wasn't much of a story. The gist is DW is a picky eater.
Yes, in fact, that's the setup sentence of my sister DW is what you might call a picky eater. So what she does like, at least from this cold open, is peanut butter and jelly, white bread, and red Freezy Pops. Loaded with sugar, all of them.
I didn't even catch that it's specifically red Freezy Pops. You hand her an orange Freezy Pop.
No, because
get that mess out of here.
No, she says when she comes to the kitchen, she's like, I hope you got the red Freezy Pops because I only like the red ones.
Wow.
And then Arthur says orange and purple are good too. And she says, but red tastes better.
Shout out to Arthur on that one.
Yeah, orange and purple, those were the ones that were my jam. Get that red stuff out of here. DW hates fish, olives, cucumbers, tomatoes, spinach, and crusts on bread. And the last one we get is the spinach, where we get this really haggard close-up on DW. She's got like all these wrinkles on her face. She's just like spinach is the most disgusting food in the universe. Just like really focusing on her eyes. Like, well, we got serious.
There's a lot of really good DW close-ups in this episode.
Yeah, there are. I noticed that too. And then the episode starts off with DW listing off more foods she doesn't like.
Before we get that, I just wanted to say during the whole sequence where she's like looking at the fish in the plastic wrap, DW's mom's like, or it might be Arthur, is like, you've eaten fish before. And she's like, it's never looked at me before.
That's true. Exactly. That's the dissonance of like, how do I eat this thing that looks at me in the grocery store, but it doesn't look like that when you make it?
Now, before we really get into this episode, I got to ask you, Will. Do you consider yourself a picky eater?
No.
No. You're down for whatever.
Pretty much.
Unless it's the ice cream that Buster orders. You're down for whatever.
Even then, depending. Like it's like as long as they're not like a chicken leg sticking.
I was just gonna say the chicken leg one.
What about you?
I used to be. When I was a little kid, I had a really unrefined palate. Like, all I wanted was, like, mac and cheese and hot dogs, typical kid stuff. As an adult, I find that I'm pretty open to almost anything. I still have some hang-ups. Like, I don't like rice, but it's a texture thing. Like, it makes me gag.
Oh, for sure. There are some foods that I'm not a fan of, but, you know, compared to when I was, say, DW's age, when, like, my family would take me to Pizza Hut, and I would only get spaghetti because I was convinced I would hate pizza.
Wow.
Now,
that's kind of crazy.
200 pounds later, I don't hate pizza.
Yeah, I've really tried to branch out in my adult life, and so I actually really enjoy the process of trying something I've never tried before and experiencing new flavors and textures.
For
so
sure.
I no longer consider myself a picky eater, but I definitely was one back in the day.
Who knows what you could be missing out on? Some other foods that DW hates include stinky cheese,
She's missing out.
tapioca,
Again, missing out.
lima beans, mushrooms, and onions.
Oh, onions are so good. I think that was the one that offended me the most when I heard
Yeah, onions are really good.
Because she was like, not only did she not like onions, and she goes, they're sticky too. And I'm like, okay, first of all,
and smelly.
that has nothing to do with the taste.
No.
Second of all, onions make everything better. Saute some onions, you can throw it on anything savory, and it'll improve the taste.
That sounds good. But the foods she does like are strawberries, chocolate, birthday cake, and chocolate ice cream. And
it's so funny.
And it was here that I realized that DW has the exact same type of likes and dislikes as my girlfriend.
Oh, yeah?
My girlfriend is...
Oh, you know what? I remember your girlfriend going on a little Twitter thread about all the things she didn't like food-wise. I think it was like a hot take.
Yeah, it was like
marathon.
put in your hottest food take. And if I may borrow a Mancini-ism, it's crazy. All the stuff she doesn't like. But for her,
tad unreasonable.
Well, for her, it's living with her low these many years. I understand why. It's because she's got really sensitive taste buds. So,
I see.
like really outrageous tastes, like just don't agree with her. Like one of the things that she hates the most is like vinegar. Like she can barely be in the room with it.
Bro,
like I can't eat like pickles that have been, in the brine because like she's like I can't even like breathe next to her. She's like, go brush your teeth.
I hope she listens to this because when I was a little kid, my mom favorite snack at the Mancini residence was sliced cucumber with some salt and vinegar on it.
Nice.
And when I ate all the cucumbers, I just drank the dang vinegar off the plate, boy. Yeah, that's right.
You're like me.
That's how hardcore I am.
You're like me when I would get the McDonald's ketchup in the little thing, and then I would just eat the ketchup.
Yeah, just throw her back.
There's so much sugar in there that it's basically its own food.
Yeah, most ketchup is like 99% sugar.
Oh yeah, it's good. Anyway, so
I will say I have a friend who's like the opposite of your girlfriend.
Okay.
He was like born with without a sense of smell, so he can't taste as much as other people.
Oh no.
And so like his favorite thing, like he doesn't like turkey because he says it tastes like nothing to him.
Wow.
So what he'll do is
bad.
like he just makes ramen and just loads it with stuff to make it as like spicy as possible so he can't taste it.
Wow. It's like,
Your girlfriend and this guy are like Mr. Glass and Bruce Willis in Unbreakable, except specifically with taste sensations.
yeah, so a lot of DW's favorite foods are my girlfriend's favorite foods. Maybe not. I don't think she likes birthday cake. She prefers ice cream cake. So just substitute that. But I was just like, this sounds really familiar. DW also doesn't like what Dad has for dinner. It's Hawaiian shrimp, and it looks to be just kind of shrimp in a kind of sauce with pineapple. Looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good, though I will say it's kind of nuts that they try to feed this to baby Kate.
I said that too.
I was like, that's like, listen, I don't know. Maybe a baby can totally eat shrimp. That seems like a choking hazard to me.
Yeah.
Like full-sized shrimp tails sticking out of the plate.
Yeah.
And baby Kate's just trying to eat it with her hands. It's not a sight I've seen before.
It seems really
Cheerios, these are not.
questionable. Like, I'm not so sure. Like, my sister is introducing my niece to like all kinds of food and stuff. Even then, like with fish, that's got to be a controlled environment because you never know if they're going to have like a shellfish allergy.
That's true.
So hopefully they've done their homework.
Arthur's dad's getting it out of the way early. Now or never. Rip off the Band-Aid.
Well, he's a cook, so he's got to know if his daughter can handle fish or not. I noted here the animation in this one is a little bit felt different from a lot of other episodes. It reminded me of like a Comedy Central adult cartoon show, just in the way that a lot of the expressions were kind of accentuated in favor of like big cartoonish like physical movements. It seemed like a lot of it was going into the subtleties of the expressions of the characters. Remind me like of earlier, not early, but like earlier singles single-numbered seasons of The Simpsons or like The Critic or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Critic's a good poll.
Anyway, just kind of got that idea. So we cut to the Reed family at like a swanky restaurant. DW's picking stuff out of her salad and realizes that her salad has spinach leaves instead of lettuce.
This is so over the top. This goes so far.
It was here I noticed the expression thing, because Arthur is about to bring the fork to his mouth and then just his eyes go over to her. Uh-oh, she's gonna pop. And then DW like literally is like, she's like heaving of just like, this is spinach. The waiter comes over, she's like, this is spinach and I hate spinach, and then just like hits the plate. It goes in that big cartoon arc right on top of the waiter's head and gets all that spinach, including the vinaigrette dressing in his bald head, and then he summarily quits.
Yeah, he goes, that's it. I quit. Yeah. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. What I'm confused about this, and I get that it's one of those things where it needs to happen so we can have an episode, because if she just didn't like it and pushed it away, her parents would be that mad at her.
Right.
So she really needed to have a freak out so they would punish her.
She needs
but
to
like,
be
who
rude.
does this? When you don't like something, you're outraged.
Well,
I guess you have to think back to when you weren't allowed to order for yourself at a restaurant, maybe. But it's still weird to me that someone would be like presented with a food they didn't like, and their reaction would be to like throw it in the air and yell.
It's definitely on the more extreme side of what you might expect a little kid to do. And even then it would be like she would be in trouble, which she kind of is. As they go back home, Grandma Thor's been taking care of Kate, and Arthur is bursting to tell Grandma Thor about this. It's just like, oh, you're back really soon. And Arthur's like, DW launched her salad bowl and it exploded. And then Mom and Dad give him this great like just stare down from the corner of their eyes like, shut up.
Which is actually a great piece of continuity, because like that is often happening to Arthur. Arthur will do something and DW will immediately blow up his spot.
Yeah.
And so it was fun. He jumped on the chance once the tables had turned.
Yeah. So DW is in trouble. She gets sent to her room because she, needs to accept food that's put in front of her, which is a big lesson as a kid. Like, when you're older, you get to, make your own decisions about what you want to eat or what you don't like to eat. But when you're a kid, you kind of got to suck it up. And especially because you haven't tried everything, so you don't know if you don't like things by the look of them. It's dropped here that Grandma Thor's birthday is coming up soon, and they're going to go to a restaurant called Once Upon a Restaurant. But Grandma Thora, ever the grandmother, says that if DW can't join them, I should say, Mom intimated that DW won't be joining them to Once Upon a Restaurant, but Grandma Thora doesn't want to leave her out, so she'd just be happy to have dinner at the Reed house, which Arthur gets wicked upset about. Like he goes, I wrote here, Arthur the drama king. He gets so upset that he can't go to this themed restaurant, mind you, for somebody else's birthday, which they have every right to say, I don't really want to go there. And then we'll get into it in a bit more detail, but he goes into this elaborate fantasy scenario about how he's never allowed to do anything without DW. Just like, oh man, he is really making this about him.
So a couple things. We kind of get a clearer picture of why Arthur would be so excited to go to someone else's birthday at this restaurant later on. As far as we know now, this is just like a medieval times stand-in.
Yeah.
It's a lot more elaborate, we'll soon learn, kind of to the point where it's like, how is this restaurant still in business?
And themed restaurants are pretty cool when you're a little kid.
I can't say I've ever been to one. I haven't even been to a medieval. I haven't even been to a medieval times.
Well, I'd say even just going to a restaurant was really fun when I was a kid, because it's like, oh, it's something my mom hasn't made. This is awesome. Now when I'm older, I'm just like, I wish my mom would make all my meals again.
Yeah. The most I could think of is like as a kid being like, oh, we get to go to Olive Garden when we're in the States. I'm just gonna eat a ton of breadsticks.
Nice.
Though I always did want to go to the fake pizza place in not Recess, the Weekenders. That show had a different pizza place every time.
Yeah, that's right.
And, like, it always changed the theme, which is a terrible business model, but like it always be like, oh, that'd be really cool.
Get some Chugga-Freezes.
Chugga-Freeze, exactly. You want to get into this Arthur's nightmare, his day nightmare?
Boy, do I. So this is set off by just Arthur's being like, am I supposed to do everything with DW? So he imagines himself, I'm going to say at least in his 30s, if not older. As Captain Reed, he is taking a spaceship to go to Jupiter, and this is
which can't you not land on Jupiter? Isn't it like a gas giant?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it's like one big storm or something.
Anyway, Arthur's upset. He doesn't know what he's saying. And this is again voice actors having to be the voice, pretending to be a different voice because it's Arthur doing an older version of himself. Just like, how does it feel to be the first astronaut to go to Jupiter? I've been preparing for this for 20 years, and I'm very excited. It's like Arthur putting on like a stereotypical white guy voice, just like, I am very excited to go there. You can hear throughout this whole thing of just like, the countdown is on, just like shuttle will launch in 60 seconds.
It's very Apollo 13.
And Arthur's just like sauntering up to the spaceship. He's taking interviews. I'm like, dude, it's leaving in like 30 seconds. You got to get in there now. Like, you can't just dawdle around this. This is serious business. You're going to Jupiter. And then a lab coat man just kind of runs out, just like, Captain Reed. It's great. He's got this like kind of southern accent. He's like, where's your sister, DW? Isn't she going with you? And then there's just like, of course not. Why would she be going into space with me? I love doing that Arthur voice. And then he just kind of, the lab coat pulls out this huge like walkie-talkie cell phone.
I forgot about this.
And it's just like, and you can just hear him under his breath. Number 345, DW is not with him right now. He says she is not going out. She is not going. And then just one of the guys back in mission control just goes, scrub it.
Yeah, he goes, scrub it. And it's almost too fast to catch. I had to go back and be like, wait, what did that guy say? And he's like, scrub it. As if to say, if this trained astronaut, it's just so ridiculous. That's what makes this whole thing work, is that it's treated with an air of like seriousness. Yeah. Like it's all shot and paced like an Apollo 13 scene, or like what's that movie?
The Right Stuff?
The Right Stuff. But the whole situation's so ludicrous because, again, it's one of those things where the fantasy directly plays into Arthur's anxieties. We're getting a very, very direct look into Arthur's psyche here.
It's just Arthur being dramatic, and then just...
But, it's so good.
And then, of course, they like literally like press a button and there's just like, there's been a mistake. This mission is being canceled. And then like they even, like, of course, because this is just Arthur's flimsiest excuse to be mad. It's just like, the rules. You can't do anything without your sister. And there's a great overhead Arthur shot. So that was pretty funny. I like this scene set up here. Arthur's seeing like he has only a week until Grandma Thor's birthday, so he needs to get DW to like broaden her palette, basically. And there's a nice like there's like a nice mood lighting by the calendar. There's a nice overhead lamp. I also noted here this is before Pal has his collar, so he's just a newly minted member of the Reed family. So this is on the Arthur timeline. This is BC before collar.
That's right. When Arthur beats Ganon, that's when Buster Baxter, that's where Francine Superstar happens. If Arthur beats Ganon, if Ganon succeeds, we have the alternate timeline where we get, I'm trying to remember episode names.
I'm just enjoying watching you flail. So Arthur's first idea is to take DW by Once Upon a Restaurant and hopefully look inside, see how cool it is, and that'll inspire her to kind of, shape up, essentially. You said great DW reactions. There's one here.
Another one.
There's one here where her eyes go super big when she sees the unicorn. She's like, unicorn. and it's Arthur being... A lot of this is like Arthur being super obvious, which is really funny because it's just like, let's stop our bikes and look in. Look, it's Once Upon a Restaurant. Let us take a look, DW. And just like really laying it on thick. And, the joke there is like, wouldn't you like to see the unicorn up close and personal for Grandma's birthday? Yes. Really? Sure, but how are we going to get it to our house? Wah, wah. So that one didn't work. He's trying to workshop ideas at the Sugar Bowl where, another Buster eating weird stuff. He's dipping his fries into what looks to be chocolate ice cream with sprinkles.
That's like a thing, though. People, they swear by the fries in the shake. Dipping your fries into your shake is like a very common practice.
Yeah, people do that at like Wendy's when they get a Frosty. So it's not like Francine and Muffy are like, ugh, but I'm like, it's not that unusual. I've definitely heard of that before. Yeah, I found this interesting. So Francine is about to like go on and on about Once Upon a Restaurant. She's just like, they have boats that take you right to your, and Muffy kind of like elbows her, and I'm like, that's interesting. Like, I would think that if you were writing that scene, Muffy would be the one who would be going on, and Francine would stop her. But this is like Muffy has tact for once, and it's just like, shut up.
It's true.
Like you're making this worse.
Muffy's proven before that she's usually the one to run her mouth.
Yeah, she's not as self-aware as Francine, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Let's just pause there, though. There's boats in the restaurant.
Well, we'll get there. We'll see that with our own two eyes.
Yeah, we're starting to get a clearer picture of like, oh, okay, this is less medieval times and more West Edmonton Mall.
Yeah, or like Disney World or something. I love this line here. Buster just like idly eating his fries, and his suggestion is, hey, why don't you trick her? Like, thanks, Buster. And Arthur's like, hey. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure.
If we were going to make a D&D Arthur character chart, Buster's proving to be more and more chaotic good every day. Or maybe even chaotic neutral.
Sure.
Now that I think about it.
Oh, that would be a good one. D&D alignment chart for the Arthur characters. So and again, them being super obvious, it's Arthur and Buster in the treehouse, anticipating that DW will overhear them. You know, Arthur just basically yelling, boy, Buster, this peanut butter and jelly sandwich is the best I've ever tasted. And great line here from Buster, just, but oh, look, I've made too many.
Can I just say this plan, of all their plans they come up with, this one in particular was absolutely failed from the start. Like, this is a horrible, horrible idea.
You think so?
Yeah, let's get into it. I'll explain exactly why this is a terrible, terrible idea.
So they made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that they anticipate DW will want to eat because they've been building it up so much. And actually, to be honest with you, I think the problem here was in the landing. They didn't stick the landing here. So DW takes a bite out of one. She seems to like it, keeps eating it, and then as she's eating it, Buster says, it's like, she loves it. There's nothing that perks up a PBJ sandwich like spinach. And the DW just immediately spits it out. I'm like, Buster, dude, that's what you say when she finishes and she says, that was really good. And I'm like, oh yeah? Well, you ate spinach.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I misunderstood this scene. I was under the impression that they had hid spinach in the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
They did.
Oh, okay. See, what I was just thinking in my mind was, oh, maybe they were going to give her the normal PB&J and tell her they had spinach.
No. I think
to trick her into thinking she likes spinach.
I think they made it with
spinach. Oh,
spinach.
okay. Then it's still totally flawed. Spinach tastes terrible in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh, probably.
That would taste absolutely horrendous. Bad enough that it would turn you off the taste of spinach forever. Because imagine, let me paint you a picture here. You're biting into a peanut butter and jelly sandwich expecting the taste of peanut butter and jelly, and then you get a big old wet, soggy piece of spinach in the middle, texture-wise and surprise flavor-wise. Yeah. You're never going to want to have spinach again. But how did they expect this to play out? Was she going to be like, so good?
Well, she seemed to like it at first.
That's true. That's because she did get into the spinach bite. So I think it's more logical to assume that their plan was like, this is just a straight-up lie. Like, oh yeah, every peanut butter jelly sandwich has spinach in it. That's what jelly comes from. And then she would believe that she likes the taste.
I don't think so.
Either way, it's ludicrous, but it is. We get one of the most grotesque Arthur shots of all time, as we have a camera that's on the ground facing up on the treehouse, and then we get DW vomiting directly onto the camera, which is like nothing I've ever seen on network television, let alone a children's cartoon.
It's a real Barfo-Rama moment. So that one is a failure. Arthur's a little bit depressed. Francine and Muffy's suggestion is that if DW sees somebody she admires eating spinach, then she'll be more likely to eat it, which is better than that first plan.
For sure. This one's actually just kind of failed by random chance.
Yeah, but I'm also kind of confused. Like, so just like Arthur's like, good idea, but who does she admire? And then everybody kind of looks at Muffy. I'm like, why does she admire Muffy?
Muffy's a big baller.
I guess.
DW, hey, game record.
She's got that big baller brand.
Yeah. Oh, yikes! Don't get me started. Jeez. Shout out to LeVar Ball. Oh man, that's a podcast for another day. But I will say that game recognized game. DW's a player. Muffy's a player. You gotta respect. She puts respect on that name. You know what I'm saying? Like.
I'm not a player. I just spend a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You can recognize. LeVar Ball. I was not planning on talking about that today, let me tell you.
It's okay. We don't have to. So Muffy, her plan is like bring them to the mansion. She has a big plate of spinach, and she goes to eat it, but then a fly gets on it, and she like throws it up in the air. So DW's like, I guess that didn't work. It's just like
call it off, scrub it, as a scientist
scrub
would
it.
say.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that just didn't work. And then Francine's idea is to feed it to Kate. And
I mean, she'll eat shrimp.
Yeah, I guess so. But even so, the bowl of spinach that they have for Kate, that's a lot of spinach for a baby to eat. That's like a me-sized serving of spinach. This one, I think, is more about kind of shaming her into eating spinach because, it's like they're feeding it to Kate and then DW runs it. She's like, don't eat it. And then Arthur's just...
which is a little bit confusing. Like, is she just trying to warn Kate from the bad taste? Or, like, does she believe spinach will harm her in some way?
I don't know.
This plays into her overreaction earlier where she's, like, freaking out at the table, like, how dare someone try and serve me spinach? The way she reacts to them feeding Kate spinach is as if it's poison. Like, Kate, don't do it.
And Arthur's just like, Kate is a big girl. She's not a baby that throws tantrums when there's something she doesn't like.
True.
And then Francine says, if you're not a baby, then prove it, and hands her like a spoon. So she's really trying to, again, shame her into doing this. But then all of a sudden, Kate just kind of spits up her spinach, as babies do. And then DW's like, well, looks like I'm not the only one with good taste around here. She does this baller spin flick of the spinach into Arthur's spoon in this like one fluid motion. It's awesome.
And she stains his sweater. Like, she gets spinach all over his sweater. We get this great shot of Arthur being like, oh, that didn't work either.
Yeah. So they're out of options at this point, and everything except Plan X, says Arthur. And this episode is like tricking a kid 101. These are all the tactics to use if you want to trick your little sister, your child into doing something that they initially don't want to do. Because this last one is the best of them all.
It's a master class in deception.
Because it works. So Arthur is on the phone with presumably Grandma Thora and having a very loud and obvious conversation, but DW's 4, so who cares? Just saying that now they are going to Once Upon a Restaurant and will be leaving DW behind. And he's like, pretending to try and get DW away from the phone. She's trying to get to it.
He says, DW, isn't there some dancing vegetable on TV?
Yeah, just trying to get her away. And then eventually he leads her around into yelling into the phone that she'll be coming to Grandma's party and she'll be lots of fun. And then she runs to the kitchen to tell Mom and Dad that she'll try something new and eat it all. And then it turns out Arthur was on the phone with Buster the whole time.
I snorted so loud at Buster's impression of Arthur's
Glad I can help you, Sonny.
Buster's just like sitting on the floor next to his bed. He's implicated in this crime.
With his cord phone.
Yeah, he's just so happy to trick a 4-year-old.
All right, so now it is Grandma Thora's birthday dinner. Now we can talk about Once Upon a Restaurant.
Oh, my goodness.
Which, like you said, I don't know how they're making enough money to stay afloat. First of all, the outside of it looks like, the medieval castle with the flags and the rookeries and stuff. Inside, they're taken to their seat by boat.
By gondola.
By a swan gondola.
Yeah.
Swandola. And, they're led there by boat along this, canal.
Which begs the question, how big is this facility?
Good question.
And if they have to get to their seat by boat, how are the waiters getting to the tables in time? Where's the kitchen located?
There's a lot of questions here.
For sure.
There's somebody getting a birthday cake, and there's a dragon that's spitting open flames to light the candles. This is a serious affair.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute. Hold up. Pause.
Okay.
What was up with that dragon? Is magic real in the Arthur universe?
It's a fake dragon.
Okay. Where did the fire come from?
It's a machine. You can tell it's a machine.
So this is the fire marshal's yeah, you could have a propane open torch flame to light these candles. No issue.
Hey, I've been to restaurants before where they cook with an open flame at your table.
For sure. Me too. Was not this big. This dragon was straight up rain of fire about to burn Matthew McConaughey flame.
And their seats seem to be in the pirate ship section.
Right. There's
a whole pirate ship.
Within this themed restaurant, which again, pirate ships, it's kind of, I don't think pirates existed at the same time as King Arthur's court, but whatever.
it's fairy tales. That's the loose theme
for sure. But the fact that there could be like this building, it's not like it's an outdoor facility, like this enclosed warehouse that I assume I love it. I like last episode we were talking about this giant fantasy museum that has every famous piece of historical art in it. I love this insane restaurant. Maybe that's why Arthur was so excited to go with Grandma Thora, is that it's so expensive to like rent a table there, because it's like this luxurious LARPing experience. It's like when Michael Douglas's brother bought the game for him in the game. Like
it's just something for rich people to do.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like Arthur's parents got mailed a key, and it was like, the game may begin. It will lead you to this medieval restaurant.
I would love to see Arthur play the game.
Oh, Arthur would be so bad at the game. Like, he'd be like, Buster would be the one where, like, Arthur's, like, pulls out this car, and, like, Buster gets out, and he's got all these keys, and he's like, they got to me, man. You gotta get away. They're everywhere. Arthur's like, Buster, what are you talking about?
I gotta see that movie. I haven't seen that movie yet.
Wait, you haven't seen the game?
Not yet.
It's got some major plot holes.
Yeah,
I'm sure if you think about it for a second too long, that whole movie falls apart. But that's like it's a super underrated David Fincher movie. I love the game.
Well, I've seen almost all of Fincher's movies, so I want to fill in the film.
Ooh, it's on like upper echelon for me. It's I would put it near the higher of the list than like say, what's David Fincher's worst movie?
Panic Room?
It's either Panic Room or Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, I'd say. So.
Sure. I haven't seen Girl with Dragon Tattoo either.
It's okay.
Not yet. So yeah, they get led to their seats. Like the servers, there's like one who's dressed as a princess. There's one who's dressed as Red Riding Hood. It's like, that's got to be fun. So they get there.
BB Hood from Darksiders.
What a pull!
She pulls out a Uzi. Brah, brah.
So they get served, and they have their dinner, which looks pretty good. Arthur has Wicked Witch weenies, which I always thought looked pretty good.
I mean, I guess it doesn't exactly seem like fine dining, though. It's kind of like sliced up sausages and beans.
Yeah, but maybe they do it.
You know what?
Right.
That's how they save money for the big production. Is they kind of skimp on the food.
Could be.
It's like the robot restaurant in Japan. The food sucks, but you get to see those robots fight.
Right. And Mom and Dad get lobsters for two, which, like, all right. I don't want to have a lobster in a restaurant, like especially a fancy dress restaurant. I'd rather have a lobster at home where I can wear my sweats. I can get it like dirty and wet and all that stuff, and just be a gross pig about it.
I think that's something very specific to where we live. I think in most places, the only place you'd be able to get lobster is a fancy restaurant. We have lobster privilege.
Yeah, okay, that's true. That's a good point.
Where we do.
Probably in quote unquote Boston, you probably won't have that same. All right, fair point. And DW, her thing is Little Bo Peep pot pie, which she tries. I wanted to know what Grandma Thora got, because they said everybody except Grandma Thora. Which she tries a bite of, she likes, and she eats the whole thing.
Quick question: is Little Bo Peep pot pie real?
I don't think so.
Because yeah.
Well, pot pie is.
Okay, because I was talking to my parents about this recently. I don't remember why, but this episode came up. Because as a kid, I always believed it to be a real dish. I think I had it confused.
I always wanted to try it.
I think I had it confused with shepherd's pie or just a regular, like, stew pie, like you said, a pot pie. So I always thought that Little Bo Peep pot pie was real, but I think this episode came up recently about how DW was a picky eater. My parents remembered it, and they were like, yeah, that's not a real thing. Like, Little Bo Peep pot pie is just to that Arthur episode. I didn't go to the lengths of looking it up, but hey, if you have evidence of real-life Little Bo Peep pot pie, maybe even a recipe, please email us.
Sure.
elwoodcitylymits@gmail.com.
Do your parents listen to the show?
No.
Okay. No, Little Bo Peep pot pie, I think, is just a kind of like, like a chicken pot pie or a beef pot pie or something like that, which,
That is a secret ingredient.
Yes. So DW eats the whole thing. Her dad tries to get the recipe. And this is basically the end of the episode. And this is like really... I don't think this is an Arthur book, but man, it ends like one. And that's not a criticism. It's just like... It's the type of thing that I've read in all kinds of kids' books. So it's just like you take it's like, what's in the pot pie? It's just like you take a pie pastry and fill it up with lots and lots of spinach, and then just like the like that kind of sting, and then everybody looks at DW shocked, and she's like, "Why is everybody looking at me? I love spinach. Everyone knows that." And that's the end of the episode. But it was just really like, yeah, that's the kind of thing you pull in the kid's book where it's just like, turns out that thing was made of spinach. And then she loved spinach. And like, you would be able, I don't know. Like
the real treasure was the spinach we ate along the way.
I guess so, but it's like, I've got to think that there's got to be more stuff in that pie than just like a spinach filling.
I think people were so surprised. Yes, I would assume that it's not just a pie crust filled with spinach.
Yeah.
But they were so shocked by the spinach revelation that they didn't have time to ask for the other ingredients. It was a real Kaiser Soze moment. DW's looking around. The bottom of the coffee cup says spinach on it. She's like,
the bulletin board says spinach.
The bulletin board's like, spinach.
Little Bo Beef. All right, yeah, that's the end of that one. And now a word from us kids.
With all the basketball references we made so far, the first kid they interview has a awesome dead stock vintage Charlotte Hornets t-shirt on. Shout out to that kid. I'd buy that off Instagram if he still had it.
This is the most excited I've ever been to talk about a Now Word From Us Kids.
This is the first A Word From Us Kids I've remembered. Like, all the Word From Us Kids, maybe this Word From Us Kids is burned into my brain almost as much as DW puking onto the camera earlier.
It's burned into my brain now, but maybe for the wrong reasons. So it's...
Oh no, it was the wrong reasons when I first saw it too.
Kids are kids in a I'm guessing a third grade class taking over their school kitchen to make the craziest sandwiches they can, and we get a whole lot of visuals of their crazy concoctions, and a few of them share their recipes with us. And
they interview this one kid who, like, you could tell he's very excited to be on camera because he's decided to talk like some sort of robot alien for the entirety of the segment.
You could tell what he's really into at a young age. He's a young buster.
Exactly.
Just like, we are making the craziest sandwiches with our third grade class, like that kind of thing. I'm like, all right. So all I wrote down for this, aside from the setup, was their descriptions of their sandwiches.
Oh, lovely.
Because
I also want to say, before you get into these descriptions of the sandwiches, it's not just the visual shock and horror of the monstrosities.
Horror is a good word.
The monstrosity these kids put together. There's also this crazy synthesizer.
There is. They go nuts
underlying this whole thing. But it's not just like a normal synth. It's like
fart synth.
They have like this wobble placed on it. Like they're changing it.
It's like a whammy bar.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this whammy bar where it's this alien noise. Like, again, you often get the idea that whoever's editing Word From Us Kids knows what they're doing. Like,
right.
I remember when the kids were coming up with their monsters, and that one kid had the really grotesque one, and the guy put the scary music under it.
Yeah.
Like, whoever edited this was like, okay, these sandwiches are gross.
It really,
let's put some like
stank
Trent
on it.
Trent Reznor on lean synthesizer under this. Just
well, yeah, it's like, I probably can't get the audio for it, but it's just like it's like a cat and a fart mixed together. But okay, so
it seems like something that Hank Hill would be listening to when he said, "By God,
good God, it's nothing but toilet sounds." So some of the concoctions include ice cream and chocolate chips on white bread.
You know what? That's not actually that bad. There's like a Dutch dessert that my girlfriend and their family have when they have like a big get-together where it's like white bread with like chocolate sprinkles on it. It's got a special Dutch name, but it's like a Dutch thing that Dutch people eat.
Dutch.
Yeah. Pass that Dutch, Missy Elliott. But that's actually pretty good.
Right.
So this wouldn't be white bread.
It gets worse.
It gets much worse. White bread's already like cake anyway. So
yeah, it really
fine.
is. Well, sugar in it. The next one is popcorn, macaroni salad, and chocolate chips. There are chocolate chips on every single sandwich.
It's like when you go to the yogurt place and we've talked about this before, you have to pace yourself.
Yes.
You just can't put everything on. For instance, popcorn and macaroni salad, you know what? That's not that crazy.
No.
It's the chocolate chips that ruin that one.
Then you're adding a whole different type of flavor in there, and you're getting into one of the things I hate most in this life. It's competing flavors. It's why you can't have celery in a salad. All you're gonna do is taste the celery. And that's just my go-to. They're competing flavors. I'm not for it. Then there's a little girl's just like, it's like, this one's great if you have a sweet tooth. Chocolate chips and sprinkles. And it's just like, I'm not, and this isn't me making fun of it. I thought it was just really, just like the sprinkles. I'm just like, oh, that's cute, but also disgusting. Then the kid who's talking like a robot.
Man, this guy, like,
This is the one we've been building up to.
I think I'm annoyed by this kid just specifically because I see myself in him.
Fair
like,
enough.
I totally would have been like, oh, I'm on TV. I am going to do an affectation for the entirety of this segment. And I could just picture, like, the teacher off camera being like, all right, Jimmy, do you want to do, like, maybe a normal take of this one this time? And he goes, who is Jimmy? My name is Zutu. I am from Planet Bad Sandwich.
But sometimes he does do a couple of, like, he doesn't do it all the time.
That's true.
Sometimes he does a normal read.
He's just trying to, 15 minutes of fame.
I know what you're saying. I don't want to be too hard on him because, like, when the camera's on you as a kid, like, who knows? But
yeah.
So on his,
If this was in 2017, this kid would have hit the dab after he described his sandwich.
They all would have. So on his sandwich is his Sam's Flying Saucer sandwich. Pizza, pasta, hot dogs, cheese, chocolate chips, corn, pickles, cookies, apples, and ice cream. Let's review. So pizza, pasta, hot dogs.
At this point, I'm not immediately turned off. I would try this.
Like when I went to Pizza Delight one time, I made myself a garlic bread lasagna sandwich.
There you go.
That's not far off.
Yeah.
Cheese.
Awesome. Every good sandwich. Cheese.
Chocolate chips.
Okay.
Stop.
Again.
Desist. Go back.
Yeah, U-turn right now.
Yeah.
Can we reverse this vehicle, please? Oh God.
It's like we're on a fine straight drive, and then the chocolate chips is the first swerve.
Okay.
Then corn is overcorrecting in the other direction. Because just like, let's try and get something healthy in there. It's just like, no, this is a lost cause. And then along with that is pickles, and then we're just like, okay, you want to talk about competing flavors? You put a lot of pickles on something, that's what you're talking about. I'm a little pickle on like a burger or sandwich or something, totally fine.
I'm a pickles on a sandwich kind of guy.
Sure, me too, but it needs to be controlled. And these kids, there's nothing controlled about this. Cookies, talking about steering back in the other direction. Apples, like, who are we trying to kid here? Like, who are you trying to kid that you need corn, pickles, and apples in a sandwich? Like, just take it out of there and just put the junk in, and then ice cream. Like,
and then ice cream.
Gosh.
This reminds me of someone I know in real life who made a very similar sandwich once. They were just so desperate. They were determined to use everything they had in this friend's fridge. And so, like, it had maple syrup and, like, I want to say some sort of, like, spaghetti and, it was mayonnaise.
Maple syrup's another thing. The only thing you can have maple syrup on is pancakes and waffles. Anything else, it just... No.
No, I disagree. You could, if your maple syrup touches your breakfast ham, that's fine.
I'd rather it didn't.
That's the difference between you and me. That's totally fine.
The only thing...
If it touches your bacon... I'll dip my bacon in maple syrup, dude.
No,
chicken and waffles. I think I'm with the majority here. I think you're in a minority.
I don't think you are.
Oh yeah? I want to leave this to the listeners. Are you okay? Will you dip bacon in your maple syrup? Write us in elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at ECL Podcast. Hit us up on Facebook. I want to see where you are. What is your thoughts on bacon in maple syrup? I think you will be surprised by the answers, especially from the Americans, especially if they're in the South. Chicken and waffles, that's a thing.
You know what I think? I think I'll be disappointed.
True. Touche.
And finally, the one I wanted to highlight, they do like a final visual reel of like some of the crazy sandwiches. There's one that is just like a piece of bread and then like an unpeeled banana sticking out of it and then just a bunch of crap on the side. That's not a sandwich, that's an art installation.
I want to say a producer put that one together.
But
he was like,
I don't know.
Dude, would be a great visual for this montage. Let's just put up banana
it's like
I have expected like a stapler from the classroom to be in one of the sandwiches.
It's like last episode. It's like a Salvador Dali painting or something. Anyway, wow,
this is not a sandwich.
That was that's not. None of them are. Like, there's one that's just like a hot dog facing up, and just like that's like an open-faced hot dog right there.
We don't want to get into this.
No, we don't. No, I don't. We're moving on.
I've seen a couple Reddit threads here and there about the validity of a hot dog being a sandwich or not, but the quicker we move on, the better.
Listen, I love talking about
I don't want to hear you come down on this. I don't want people to get mad at us.
No, I don't care, because I like talking about the minutia of food. This whole 2017 is X a sandwich thing, I hate it. Burn it down. Moving on. All right, next episode is Buster and the Daredevils. This one has a bit more of a setup than the last one. In fact, it's a little bit of in medias res.
I was just going to say, this is, I love it. I know it's a cliche, but especially, and this one's probably one of the most cliches we've gotten so far because time literally freezes.
Yes.
As if I feel like Bubba O'Reilly's going to start playing in the background and Arthur's going to be like, now, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I ended up here. But I got to say, it works. It's a cliche for a reason. I'm like, what is going on here? Right. Who are these two new characters? It's straight up like Pulp Fiction style, what's in the bag? Like, Arthur, like, opens his bag, looks in, and he's like, oh, no, I'm all the way in. I'm strapped in. I'm like, okay, we got to get to, how did we get here?
So Buster's with two mystery kids and doing some kind of dare, and Arthur freeze frames the shot like he's Zach Morris or something, and, again, like, takes a look at, he's trying to pick apart this scenario, just like, they introduce Buster as their good friend, and it's like, well, why does he look so nervous? And what's in his bag anyway? And it really is like a what's in the bag situation. And then that's the hook for the episode.
He looks at the camera, he goes,
they call him Buster the Brave, and just like, Buster's like, Buster Brave? And he goes back to, there's a little scene of them at Halloween where Buster's getting scared by everything. Just like, the kid dressed as an alien, just like, Arthur, aliens. And then, like, he looks into a mirror, just like, Arthur, pirates. And I'm like, wow, Buster's kind of stupid sometimes. So the episode itself starts off with Buster and Arthur playing with some Schmansformers.
That's right, some GoBots.
Yeah, some Schmobots, not again to use the joke, but off-brand. These are off-brand GoBots, like, because I don't know what these are, but
they're automatic, which is a step above any Transformer I've seen. You press a button and they transform by themselves. Though, begs the question: does that take all the fun out of it? I think so.
Maybe, yeah, but I'd still think that would be pretty cool to have, especially for younger kids, because some of those Transformers can get really hard to transform.
Let me tell you, I've never transformed my 20th anniversary Optimus Prime. It's too complicated.
I bet it is. It's like setting up an IKEA furniture. So Arthur is Captain Aster Reed, and Buster is Starbuster, as they just kind of are, fake fighting with. Arthur's is like a jet, and Buster's is like a space... spaceship, and they're just kind of flying around pretending to shoot each other. Their laser sound effects are hilarious. They're like in the sandbox pretending to shoot lasers at each other, just like choo 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 choo. Just made me laugh. So then we get introduced to the two new kids in this situation, who we find out indirectly that their names are Toby and Slink.
The Thrasher kids.
The 90s of the most 90s kids you know. Slink is a younger, bit older than Buster. I'd say they're about 10 years old, I'd say. And he's a bunny, and Toby is a bear.
I'll tell you what, though, as over the top this characterization of cool skater kid gets in this episode, they hit the nail on the head with their costume design. Like,
absolutely,
dude in a gray hoodie and other dude in like a lightning bolt t-shirt with his bangs covering his eyes.
Yeah.
Especially the way like the t-shirts are oversized. We get into some other skater fashion later on in this episode, and it's all totally accurate, especially for the time period of when this episode came out, which was impressive. And I think it really adds to the characterization of, what are their names again? Toby and
Slink.
Slink.
So Slink, I wrote down, dresses like Max from Goof Troop. Like you said, he's got kind of that loose-fitting sweater, the loose jeans, and just dresses very baggily, which was the thing back then. Toby dresses like I did in junior high. So
Toby dresses like he's in Odd Future.
He's got like a gray sweater on, hooded sweater, and he's got like brown slacks. Yeah. And so Slink is riding a skateboard, and they've both got their extreme helmets on. And
yeah, okay, so let's get into the introduction.
Toby's on rollerblades.
Let's get into the introduction of these characters, because like I said, they're true to life, but they're also not in certain ways. Like, it's a kid's show, so they're wearing all the necessary protective gear. Yeah. Like, both of them are wearing helmets and elbow pads and knee pads, where I dare you to find a skate park in the, let's say, Western Hemisphere where anybody over the age of maybe 10 years old, I guess they maybe are 10, but you're not going to see anybody decked out in the full elbow pads and knee pads unless you're at the X Games or something.
Certainly not.
Also, this slang. Man.
Well, and so as they're introduced, Slink does actually a pretty cool trick himself. Like he's skating against a bench, and then like the skateboard goes under the bench, and he jumps over it, and he meets it there. Like that was pretty cool. But yeah, their first introduction is righteous skating, Toby, radical land surfing, Slink.
Which I have to think that this was the first time the phrase radical land surfing has ever been uttered in human history, was when this voice actor said it out loud.
I love when writers try to write for cool kids.
Oh my goodness.
It's something we don't get so much anymore because that was a real 90s thing, but every once in a while,
yeah,
it's pretty great. I mean, I think it will be...
I guess the equivalent of this these days is like...
On Fleek.
Like Life is Strange, where they're like, F your selfie.
Oh, man, yeah. That was not so great. So Buster and Arthur are very much impressed by this and ask them if they could teach them to do some cool tricks. But the whole crux of this episode is that Slink and Toby are far too cool to be playing with a bunch of little kids like them. Just like, well, you are playing in the sandbox. And then... that Arthur and Buster desperately trying to get their attention so they can make friends and learn some cool skate tricks and, just be kind of considered cool. So they try to emulate them the next day or at some point, and we get some extreme sports wipeouts
Yeah, that's right. It's a Thrasher Hall of Meat montage, Arthur style. I was worried at first because... the first few couple of bails, we missed the actual impact, and I was like, "Oh, that's not as comedic as I thought it was going to be." The camera cuts away, but then we get into some people falling in the sandbox. People, you ever see that YouTube video of those two little kids, and the one kid falls off the skateboard, and he's like, "Oh man, that rock messed up your line," and the other kid's crying, and he's like, "Help me, Austin!" And he's like, "Do you want to do something bad to this rock? We could pee on it." And he's like, "Why would nature do that to me?" It's my girlfriend's favorite YouTube video of all time. I highly recommend you look up. I think if you type in "Help me, Austin," you'll find it. But he's like, "Man, that he says the word effing. He goes, "That effing rock really screwed up your line." And he's like, "Help me, Austin." He goes, "Hey, I found the rock. Goody. Could you stop filming me, please?" "Okay." And then the footage immediately ends.
No, I haven't seen that one. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
So actually, the first one is Buster doing a full body press into the sandbox. He's trying to jump over the bench and meet his skateboard. And then a couple other ones are like Arthur's trying to emulate Toby's spin around the pole, which wasn't as impressive as what Slink did, but he gets dizzy and falls over. Buster almost pulls off the jumping to meet your skateboard later, but then it catches up with him and hits him in the knee, which when a skateboard is going full speed, especially a pointed one like Buster's, it probably would hurt quite a bit. We get this close-up shot of Buster going, "Ow!" Arthur falling on his butt into the sandbox, and then Buster trying to kick flip up the skateboard, but it just hits him in the head and lands.
Which was probably my personal favorite. Solid bail montage. All it's missing is them breaking their skateboard in between each mess up.
Right. Trying to get that freak out meter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, the freak out meter. Yes, you know what I'm talking about.
Just, stomp in the middle of it, yeah. So Toby and Slink were watching them and kind of making fun of them, just you guys are going to skate today? And Toby says, "Are you kidding? Comic Mania just opened." I'm gonna say this here. I had it down later. To me, Toby sounds like, he's got a little bit of a raspier voice. He's just like, "Comic Mania just opened." And to me, he sounds like a character from Disney's Quack Pack. When Huey, Dewey, and Louie, it's the 90s show ever, because you have DuckTales, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and then Quack Pack is the 90s follow-up where they're surly teenagers who don't want anything to do with Uncle Donald.
Oh my
so
goodness.
One of them's got a backward baseball hat, one of them's got a flop, and the other's got spiked hair, and it's just so many comic books.
Yeah.
And, it's no longer Uncle Scrooge, Uncle Donald. It's man, there's so many comic books, and they sound like 40-year-old smokers.
It's the 90s cartoon archetype, right? He sounds like Michelangelo, basically. It's that you know,
and not so
well, actually, no, it's
not
more
so
like,
not so surfy as Michelangelo.
Not as surfy.
Michelangelo was more like a valley girl almost, or like a California surfer, basically.
Yeah,
he's just like a disaffected '90s youth.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so that was fun. So he says they're going to Comic Mania, and then I'll just leave this line here: "Strap-ons, how uncool." So Buster and Arthur decide to go to Comic Mania. The first thing they see over there is Bionic Bunny versus Techno Turtle. I will say, this comic store looks huge, which proves it's the 90s.
It's very Midtown.
So the first issue of Bionic Bunny versus Techno Turtle, to which Arthur says it's probably worth $1,000. Like, don't know about that. Toby kind of comes up to just like, you couldn't pay me to read that baby comic. It kind of hurts to his voice. And so the comic they recommend is Pea Brain and Nuthead, which is the most unsubtle parody of Beavis and Butt-Head you've ever seen.
It's kind of crazy though to think that like Arthur was doing like an on-the-nose parody like this of an adult TV show.
Yeah,
like they do it later on. There's a very specific episode.
They do it a lot actually. Later. They haven't done it so much yet,
and it's kind of rare in like children's TV. You don't see. I usually stuff like that skews a little older. Like I could see like a Fairly Odd Parents or something doing this, but like on Arthur's level, it's just a welcome surprise. I'm sure for the adults at the time of this extremely on the nose Pea Brain and Nuthead. And I got a huge kick out of it, especially because like Pea Brain and Nuthead have no dialogue.
Yeah,
they just do the laugh, which I'm sure like. Being a writer for Arthur, you're right in the age group where you probably thought Beavis and Butt-Head was like super annoying at the time, and so when you were walking by and you saw it on a TV and you saw them going, you were like, "Oh my god, these two."
Well, that's why I liked it. In fact, I'll just include the next line here. It's just like they're reading it, and Buster like does this big like ha 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 ha, this big fake laugh, and just he just says like laugh. But I don't get it. Neither do I. But they don't have to know that. And Arthur's just like, ha ha ha. And I thought this was funny because I don't like Beavis and Butt-Head.
Oh yeah, you're not a fan?
No.
Do you like Mike Judge's other stuff?
I like King of the Hill.
You like King of the Hill? Do you like Office Space?
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Beavis and Butt-Head it's very much of a time and place, but I think the best stuff from it is the stuff that you don't get to see as much is the them riffing on the music videos.
Yeah, but you also kind of have to find those characters funny, and I don't. Like, I just don't. Like, I never have, and I probably never will.
You realize Beavis, he never scored?
Like, sure, whatever, great.
Again, it's a very specific sense of humor. I appreciate it, specifically that music video stuff. It's hard to go back to, I think.
Yeah.
Beavis and Butt-Head Do America. It's not hold up as well as I thought it would, but I don't know. I don't harbor any hate for Beavis and Butt-Head. And Mike Judge, as far as I'm concerned, he's a legend of the game. He could do no wrong.
Oh no, I wouldn't say I hate it or anything. I just really don't like it. Like there's nothing about it that's there for me. But I know a lot of people like it, so whatever. Toby says like, you know, Arthur's just like that peanut sure cracks me up. He's not a peanut. He's a pecan. And then Buster's next plan to make it perfect to get them on their side is to meet them at the restaurant Billy's Burger Barn, where they are. And this is Arthur Meme Alert right here.
I was just going to say Arthur Meme Alert.
Absolutely, because we have Buster dressed up in these like 80s mod sunglasses, which he can't see out of, and Arthur dressed as a b-boy. He's got himself a backwards baseball cap. He's got a black shirt and he says his dad's shorts, which he thinks are going to fall down.
These like cargo shorts.
These enormous cargo shorts that aren't done up by a belt or anything.
I've seen this image used to say, it's like on Twitter, and it's like, when he says he's a big Title Fight fan, like the band Title Fight, which to describe it, people say it's like Pearl Jam for millennials who put their keys on like a carabiner. That's what Title Fight is. And so, and trust me, if you've ever seen like kids who are into that style of music, they dress exactly like Arthur in his like snapback and his black t-shirt and his cargo shorts.
It was very, very funny looking. There's also a seldom used acoustic sting used as the soundtrack here. Just to note.
Arthur looks like he's about to start push moshing at any minute.
So you think it's more kind of like grungy or hard rock? I was thinking more like hip hop influenced.
I feel like the cargo shorts is what breaks that. You don't see a lot of cargo shorts in hip hop.
That's true.
Arthur looks like he walked out of like an all ages show in 2017 to me. Like,
fair enough. I'm not so much hip anymore. So maybe that's true. Buster has some sweet lines that he drops here, which are funny because it's trying to make Buster sound out of touch. So
it's almost ironic. It's almost ironic because it's like it's trying to make fun of Buster's trying to sound out of touch, but the writers already sounded out of touch in the first place. So it's not that uncharacteristic.
So Buster says, "Hey, fresh dudes, mind if we chill your crib? Me and my home fry here would like to be in your possum. I mean, posse."
It's a very hello, fellow teens.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So I thought that was kind of funny. They initially get turned away, but then Toby and Slink decide to use this to their advantage to make Arthur and Buster do certain dares in order to get them to basically just embarrass themselves for their own entertainment, with the promise that they'll teach them cool skate tricks, which of course won't happen. So their first dare, Arthur's not really sure about. Well, neither of them are. But their first dare is to do something in public. And Arthur's about to do it, but then sees his mom in DW and just immediately cuts out. Just leaves Buster in the dirt.
And then Buster's all, "I'm Buster, and welcome to Jackass."
But Buster's is, so he has to sing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" out in public, and Buster puts on a full like Luciano Pavarotti take on it.
You know what though? When you're in this situation, I was in gym class once and we were playing Stormy Seas.
Okay.
But if you got tagged, you had to do something embarrassing.
Yes.
And one of
I
them,
remember this, but go on.
And have I told this story before?
No, yeah, but
How
go on.
my gym teacher told me to do "I'm a Little Teapot."
Yes.
The thing is, when you're in this scenario, the best way to do it is you got to not half-ass it. You got to go all in.
Yeah.
And then you could be like, well, you know what? At least they gave it their best try. So Buster, like, he puts on a show, and it's like props to Buster. When I did "I'm a Little Teapot," I went all in on it. Buster does the same.
Yeah. So the next thing is that they're outside the Sugar Bowl. You know, they say that, you know, this is just one last dare to prove you're not chicken. Buster goes in, which may be a slur. I don't know. But everybody's sitting. It's like Arthur, Francine, Muffy, and Binky, I think. And Buster says, "Excuse me, Arthur. Binky, I have a message for you." "What?" and then he does a thing where he's really nervous about saying it, so he has to think for a second. Just like, Lucas is like red in the face right now. He's just like, "Oh, right. Your mother eats gym shorts."
Buster runs up on Binky like he's Kevin Lee calling out Michael Chiesa at the UFC Summer Kickoff press conference when Kevin Lee was all, "Yo, your mom's gonna buy tickets," and Michael Chiesa was like, "Don't you talk about my mom." And then Michael Chiesa ran up and got socked in the face. Buster does, it was weird. You know how we talk about Arthur, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but you know how we talk about Arthur predicting the future? I had like just watched the UFC Summer Kickoff press conference, and so all this drama, Kevin Lee calling out Michael Chiesa's mom, I was like, oh my God, Buster's the Kevin Lee in this scenario. He's going to get run up on by Binky.
If only Mike Chiesa had dunked a sundae on Kevin
That's right.
Lee's head.
You know what though? Had Michael Chiesa had a sundae on him, I'm not sure he wouldn't have. Their history of throwing Monster energy drink cans at UFC press conferences, if you're not a UFC fan, I highly recommend, if you don't watch it work because there's lots of swearing, look up Kevin Lee calling out Michael Chiesa's mom.
That was pretty something. But my favorite part of that whole thing, as I said to you, was the looks of, like, you could see everybody else, and particularly the women, but the men don't look impressed either. They're just kind of there as they're doing this little pull apart between Michael Chiesa and Kevin Lee, and they're just kind of like, like they look incredibly unimpressed.
There's this one girl, this female fighter, Valentina Shivchenko. Everybody else looks towards them because they're all on the same stage. Valentina Shivchenko, I assume she's looking at like a projector screen, or maybe she just doesn't care because she's just kind of smiling and staring off blankly into space as these two men brawl behind her.
Just these two men have their silly fight. We get another one where they're playing baseball, and it turns out that Slink is part of Mighty Mountain. They're division rivals, Lakewood Elementary's division rivals. So Buster calls Francine over to the plate saying he needs advice. And the joke here is that Francine says, it's like, what does he need advice for? He's just got to run home as fast as he can. And then Buster
keep that phrase in mind.
Exactly. And Buster plants a kiss on Francine. And then Everybody's really shocked, and Brain says, "What's he doing?" And Arthur says, "He's running home as fast as he can." And it's a great delivery. It's very definite. She's like, "He's just running home as fast as he can." And then it's literally Francine chasing Buster off the field and presumably home.
I think she says, "Buster Baxter, I'm gonna clobber you," or something.
I'm gonna pulverize you.
Pulverize you.
Which is this the first kiss of the show?
Definitely the first kiss of the show. Though, you know what? Like, this could have been... The way this was played could have gone wrong, but this went so right. Like, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
Francine's face, like the way Francine's like, "Buster, what do you have to say to me?" And then he just plants one on her.
Yeah.
And like, everybody else is like shock, and Arthur's like no affectation delivery of, "Well, I guess he's running home." The timing of it is really what makes it.
Yeah.
And like Francine's white hot rage afterwards as well.
She's furious. So this is where Arthur resolves that he needs to talk to Buster. He sees him the next day, but Buster's not saying anything, and he writes down that Toby and Slink said he can't speak for a whole day. And Arthur finally convinces him that maybe he shouldn't be doing this anymore. So Buster goes and sees Toby and Slink at the arcade where they're playing, go figure, the P-Brain and Nuthead fighting game, which again is just kind of them on screen going, Well, it's funny because they both kind of do the Beavis, or I don't know which one's which.
Butthead, Beavis. I don't remember which one's
which is the one that's Cornholio?
He's got TP for his bunghole. It's the blonde one.
So you don't know either.
Beavis.
Anyway, they do because there's the and there's the
yeah.
So, but they're both doing the They both are kind of whoever that is in that scenario. Hey, just pro tip for the email. I don't care. So they kind of brush Buster off at first, but Buster stands up to them a little bit, but then they trick him by saying that they were finally going to teach him awesome skate tricks and like passed down from the legends. And then we get Buster at their sort of Shaolin temple in his imagination, which I thought kind of looked like a bit like an Overwatch control point, like maybe on Hanamura or something.
But this whole, like, again, this episode's 2 for 2 in fantasy scenarios with the astronaut one first, and now this like Kung Fu, the TV show, Buster learning all these skate moves. I half expected him to bust out like a Christ air or something here. Because he's pulling off all these like physics-defying skateboard maneuvers.
Yeah, like the salamander, the boomerang, and finally Crane flying over water, which is just him lying on the board and flying while flapping his arms.
And making like a crane noise. He's like, honk, honk.
So they say he has to do one final dare, just one final score, and he's out. So the next day at the playground, Arthur's playing robots with the Brain, and his Brains turns into a flying saucer, but he says, "I made a few modifications to mine."
Remember when we were trying to decide which Arthur character was most likely to vape? It's definitely the Brain.
Yeah.
The Brain's like, "Oh yeah, I totally unlocked the ohms to get some mad clouds." You know what I mean? I got to be careful not to blow the coils, but...
You ever see that, like a long time ago, we were talking about Vines when I was kind of on that. There's a great one of just a guy doing vape trips, like smoke cloud tricks, whatever, doing vape tricks onto like a chair, and he's just about to like rip a fat cloud, and then the guy who's holding the camera just blows a big breath and wipes out, and he just looks at the camera and goes, "Adam."
Yeah, I have seen that one.
Offended. So Buster wants to play with it, but it's time for the big show, which is what leads us to the opening scenario, which is animated a little differently, I'll add, but whatever. So the big dare is that in front of everybody gathered at the playground, Buster's going to eat a bug out of a jar, which is a cricket because it's making like chirping noises. So Buster's to eat a live cricket, which I'm to understand that crickets are not the worst bug to eat, but you certainly wouldn't want to eat live.
I don't know. I saw Snowpiercer. Worked all right for them.
That's right. That's kind of what made me think of it. Spoilers. Yeah, then...
They're making a TV show now.
This is... Really? They're
Yeah.
making a Snowpiercer TV show?
Mm-hmm. I forget.
Really?
There's like some named actor who's like starring in it. I forget who it is, though. I don't want to say... Not Donald Glover.
Really?
You keep talking. I'm going to look this up because I don't want to get this wrong.
I'd really like to know because
Yeah.
Snowpiercer's a pretty cool movie. But I don't know how you make a TV show out of it unless you're just doing the movie again, but whatever. So Buster, at this point, looks out into the crowd. Arthur kind of gives him like a head nod no, and then Buster turns on them and just says, "I dare you to eat the bug." And he really gets him here. Like, Toby and Sling prove that they are not exactly very smart because they got outsmarted by Buster, of all people. Toby says, "How stupid do you think he is?"
Daveed Diggs of Hamilton fame. He plays Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton, and he's also half of the rap duo Clipping. He's starring in.
I'm not familiar with him, but that's cool.
Snowpiercer.
Toby says, "How stupid do you think Slink is to eat that bug?" And Slink's like, "Yeah, how stupid do you think I am?" And then Buster's like, "Oh, so you're saying that you shouldn't have to do something that you're forced to do?" And Slink's like, "That's right." It's like, "Well, thanks for telling me. I guess I won't do it." They're just like, "Oh, wait, Slink?" And then they just kind of both go back and forth. I say this sometimes to myself because I just love the delivery on, Slink's like, "Nice going, Einstein." "Yeah, take this thing." It's like he does a real yeah. And then
it's really satisfying, though. Like, I'll get into this later when we're doing our reviews of the episodes, but not a lot of Arthur episodes have straight-up antagonists.
Yeah.
Usually they use the characters they already have, and so someone kind of has to play the heel for that episode.
Yeah, that's true.
It's interesting how satisfying it's seeing two straight-up villains get their comeuppance.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's really helps out the ending of this episode. Also, it feels like so much more climactic because it was teased at the start, and like everybody's huddled there together. There's a lot of people. Like, it's really got a climax vibe of like, oh, is Buster going to stand up to them, or is he going to eat the deadly cricket? Who knows?
And then the final thing of the episode is Arthur, Buster, and Brain playing with their robots. And speaking of that kid from An Hour Word from Us Kids, they're all using their robot voices. Like, "You may be tricky, Brain Bot." And then he dares him to, Brain says, "I can transform into anything," which I don't know if that's literally true or not with the modifications he made. But Buster dares him to turn into a washing machine. And then, it says, "Quickly, Captain Asteroid, put your dirty laundry in him." And then the message there is just like, you shouldn't do something just because somebody dares you to do it, Brain. Like,
Brain got tricked.
We got it by now.
Hey, man, washing machine transform would be all right. Soundwave is maybe my favorite Transformer.
Soundwave is my favorite Transformer.
Yeah, so.
Even though Transformers... All right, so let's go back to our first story. What do you think of DW the Picky Eater?
Do you actually want to start with DW the Picky Eater? You want to take this
one? So I kind of feel the same way about these two stories in that I like him. I like him pretty well. DW the Picky Eater, I must say, I really appreciated the different kind of animation in this episode, as I mentioned earlier. And it's fun. It's kind of there's not really a message to it, but I remember when I was a kid, I was really annoyed by DW in this episode because I didn't like the fact that she was a picky eater. Now, living with someone who basically has the same preferences as DW, thankfully she's not as...
Yeah, I don't think your girlfriend's you put something in front of her and she starts yelling at you.
No, God bless her. She will choke something down for propriety's sake and then just complain about it afterwards. But I thought it was pretty fun. There was some funny stuff there, some good reactions. It's not it's not my favorite episode by any stretch, but I thought that it was. I keep saying funny and fun, but it's true. I like DW-focused episodes. I did like Arthur and Buster's various plans and the one that eventually worked. Some good visuals here and there. The ending was a little bit rushed, but I kind of got what it was going for, and that it was kind of emulating a children's book, as I said. So, all in all, pretty fun episode, and I promise I'll try and stop saying fun.
I'm a little bit torn on this one. I was really looking forward to this episode because there's so many moments and images in this episode that were like seared into my brain from childhood, specifically DW puking on the camera. Yeah. Even the Word From Us Kids segment, I remember that wobbly bassy synth and like the popcorn filled sandwich. Like I remember that as well.
Right.
So I was really excited for it. This ended up being one of those episodes where I had a lot more fun talking about it than actually watching it.
I think I agree.
You would think it's really funny from our summary of it, but there's a lot of fat to it. There's a lot of in-between joke moments where it's just kind of, it's okay.
Set up for the next scene.
Exactly. So it ends up being, it's an episode with a lot of really good moments, but it's kind of boring to watch, which was a little bit disappointing. Whereas Buster and the Daredevils is an episode I didn't really remember, and I really enjoyed it. From beginning to end, it was one of those Arthur episodes that worked with me on all levels for a couple of reasons. One, the in medias res opening. I love a good mystery, and it's one of those episodes where I'd totally kind of forgotten it, so I was intrigued, like, okay, where is this going? Two, I really liked the introduction, even though they might be just one-offs, I really liked the introduction of, is it Toby and Skid? Slink. Toby and Slink. I liked their characterization, even if it was a little bit ham-fisted of like, oh, we're the 90s kids. But I also thought this episode's plot line is a really good message and moral and something I could relate to. I've already told the story on the podcast of trying to play Smash Bros with those kids that were older than me.
That's right.
And now looking back, realizing, oh, I was probably just like really annoying and those kids wanted to just hang out with each other. I can see this from Toby and Slink's perspective, even though they kind of become malicious when they try to make fun of Buster and take advantage of his goodwill. But I could see like, oh, they don't want to hang out with these kids. And I could also see Arthur and Buster like, oh my God, these kids are so cool. They're skaters. I want to hang out with them. So because their motivations were so clear to me and the episode felt really real, I was super invested. And then all the way, I found it was really funny. Like all the different dares Buster had to do were really creative. And the setup and execution of him kissing Francine was especially a standout. And then we get to the big confrontation at the end, which, like I was saying earlier, we see villains get their comeuppance, which is something a little bit rare for an Arthur episode. And so it felt like one of those episodes where the conclusion was actually a supernatural conclusion. It didn't feel out of nowhere, especially because Arthur's been the voice of reason, which isn't a role we actually often see him in. Like sometimes he'll give advice here and there, but really this episode is Arthur's the main character, and he's trying to help Buster succeed. Like, he's struggling to help Buster see the light. And so seeing Buster's sort of turn at the end and being like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. It's a very triumphant moment.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is I really, really enjoyed Buster and the Daredevils.
Good. Yeah, I kind of feel, like I said, feel kind of the same way as I did about the first story. It's good. I think it works better as... You hit the nail right on the head with the first one because I did have a better time talking about it than I did kind of watching it. I think this kind of falls in the same category. It works a little better when you're kind of viewing it as kind of just a fun episode rather than an episode with a message. Because I feel like the message of it, which is, you shouldn't do something just because somebody dares you to do it. I felt it was a little overstated. Like, there was so many dares that Buster had to do that by the time he did like dare 3 or 4, you're just like, okay, well, he shouldn't be doing this. And then they have to kind of, pointedly stated at the end. I'm like, all right, well, that's a little clunky. But the elements of it, like even just seeing it in retrospect of just like, 90s fashion and slang kind of being put on blast a little bit, the pea brain and nuthead kind of thing. I thought that held up pretty well. I thought the animation was good. Good voice performance from Buster's voice actor. And I had fun with it, but as kind of a straight up episode, it doesn't deliver all the way, but it makes a pretty good 1-2 of these episodes where it's like they're fun. They're not the greatest Arthur episodes ever, but they're fun enough to watch with friends or just talk about or whatever. So definitely nothing really wrong with them.
Might be the greatest word from us kids ever, though.
Yes, I think that's the contender right now. Aside from.
It was the one where they made up their own endings to the Arthur episode. I thought that was a really creative one, and they brought that back.
I was actually thinking independently today about that one where that girl is giving like the tour of her classroom.
That's a really good one too.
I think just for her, like that's a top contender. But this one, I couldn't wait to talk about because I was so disgusted.
We got to get her and the alien kid in the same room.
Yeah, we do.
Then get them to come up with their own endings. There you go. That's the perfect word from us kids. Also, I'm biased for Buster and the Daredevils because it allowed me to talk about the UFC summer kickoff press conference.
You were vibrating with excitement. You couldn't wait.
It was for me. It was too perfect. So I have it written out all in caps. Kevin Lee, Michael Chase. Shout out to that fight. It's for free on TSN if you're in Canada, on Fox Sports 1 if you're in America. It'll be very fun to watch.
Well, there you go. That's our Arthur episode for today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Quick shout out to our social media platforms, Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits.
I want to hear Are you okay with bacon dipped in maple syrup? I want to hear from the listeners. Will, I want to hear from your girlfriend. I think I have an idea of what her answer is going to be.
It's no. She likes bacon, but not maple syrup. You can tweet at us at ECL Podcast. Thank you to everybody who recently followed us. We had a big blow up with one of our posts. Turns out a lot of people like the works of Junji Ito, which is A-OK with me. See our Twitter for more on that. ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com. Just today, we got a very nice message from Demixian, who is a big fan of ours. Thank you, Demixian. Very nice words, and very much appreciate that. I'll send it to you later. If you want to send us an email with the answer to that question or any kind of feedback, ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. We can read it here on the air. Finally, the two ways to hear us are SoundCloud.com/ElwoodCityLimits, or if you're into the Apple side of things, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you could rate and review us, we would really appreciate it. So, Lucas, we've got one more episode this month before you go on vacation. I was going to ask, if you don't mind saying, where are you going on vacation?
I'm going to Vancouver, BC. I haven't been there since I was a little kid, so I'm very excited.
Very nice. Maybe we have a listener or two over in Vancouver, so you could see Lucas Mancini with your own two eyes. Get to meet him. Anyway, for what it's worth, we've got one more episode, and then we're going to be putting up our Season 1 review episode on the week that Lucas is off, the final week of May, first week of June. But next week, we'll be back with a new episode. It is Arthur Makes a Movie, and go to your room, DW. I feel like you and I, but especially you, may have a lot to say about Arthur Makes a Movie, since you've been kind of involved in making movies yourself. You have friends who make movies.
For sure. The title's intriguing, and I'm excited because I don't remember it whatsoever, so I'm going in blind.
All right. Okay, so that's the end of the episode. Get in touch with us however you like, and follow us on channels, and keep on listening. We really appreciate all the feedback. My name's Will Young. Lucas?
Scrub it.
Well, that's a top contender for the name of this episode. Can't imagine anything else might beat it. We'll have to wait and see. All right, for Lucas Mancini, this is Will Young. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week.